Hello and welcome to another Simplicity Spotlight. My name is Jack, and I'm very excited to introduce Lauren, who's here with us to discuss a very important topic and ending the year strong, especially if you are a growth-focused financial advisor. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Lauren. We really appreciate you spending the time.
Oh, of course, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we jump in, Lauren, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually gonna flip to the next slide here just to give you guys kind of a little an idea. But my name is Lauren Hong, and I founded Out and About Communications. So we will be in business. So it's going to be 12 years this upcoming April, which is crazy to say, I'm sure, for those of you that are in business, business owners or have started businesses. It's like it goes by fast. You forget all the growth that comes along the way. So today we're a 25-person team. We're spread across the United States. We exclusively work in the financial services space, and actively 75% of our clients are wealth management clients. We do also work with a number of clients that serve this space. For example, NAPFA is one of our clients. So we do a lot of work with them. We're running their NAPFA Advisor magazine and things of that sort. So I know this industry very well, so much so that we hire, train, know all the ins and outs of compliance. So I'm really excited to share some of those best practices with you guys today.
Excellent. Lauren, we're definitely looking forward to that, and I am certainly intrigued. Thank you so much again for being here, and I'll stop taking away your spotlight and go ahead and we'll get started.
No, I appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. But before we do, I just want to do a quick poll. I think we're going to get a poll going here just to understand why are folks here. So, number one, are you trying to understand just SEO basics? You just kind of want to know, like, okay, how does it work? Number two, do you want to learn what works for advisors? Number three, do you want to know how to talk to an SEO service providers? This is kind of a tricky one, right? Because there's a lot of jargon, just like in this industry, there's a lot of jargon within the SEO space, or maybe you're just here to learn. So if you want to drop in your answers there, and we will adjust the discussion to your responses.
Ooh. Okay.
Give a few minute or two more.
Oh yeah. Got, I think one or two more people that might need to reply, but thank you so much for your participation, everyone. That was really it was fast.
Good stuff. I know.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready to end it, Lauren.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and end it. We'll get some results going.
I'm going to share these results with everyone.
All right. So most people want to learn what works for advisors. Awesome. Okay. So towards the end of our presentation today, I do have a slide that's going to talk about some baseline numbers, just so you kind of have an idea. They're more benchmark numbers that you can help to then kind of adjust accordingly as we move forward. I'm also going to kind of give some narratives throughout this conversation about what works for advisors, so you guys have an idea of hopefully some things you can take back to your firms. All right, so with that, I just want to kind of address very, very big picture, the elephant in the room, which is AI. A lot of people, if you're in a technical SEO spot, feel like the world is ending right now because AI has come in and it is changing the name of SEO. And so, as a result, all the different platforms are showing different numbers, the way that we're searching, the way that we're ranking. It's really changing the name of the game. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of what that means and how that impacts you all. So if you're not familiar with SEO, I do want to just take a step back and just give a more traditional definition for what it is. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. And historically, it's really this process of being able to optimize your website through organic, which is non-paid search, meaning you're not going to like Google and paying to be number one in Google, is that people are finding you organically. So this is really from you putting out you know, thought thought-provoking content that's going to drive ideally your target market back, or you're ranked for keywords for specific things that you're hoping that your identified target market is going to be searching for when they're looking for you. So this is our traditional definition, but with the rise of AI and so many things changing in the world, a lot of people have been kind of coining the new term of SEO is not search engine, but search everywhere optimization. Because I'm sure many of you are searching not just on Google, but you're probably looking on YouTube, Instagram, maybe TikTok. It really depends, right? To be able to find answers for things that you're looking for. So it's not just about Google as the main domain anymore. It's about so many other platforms. And feel free to jump in with questions if you guys have them too. We can go through those. So I do want to give a little flashback here. This was the internet not that long ago, and it's just a reminder that things change really fast. While AI has been in place for a number of years now, it's really come to the surface, especially in the last few years. So our conversation today about SEO is going to look very different if we were talking about it a year from now or 5 years from now. The algorithm, the um the the inputs, everything is constantly changing, and frankly it's adjusting to make our lives better as humans. So maybe the flip phone was the best thing since sliced bread, 15 years ago or what have you, but obviously it's changed a lot so that it makes it a better experience for us as users, right? Same thing with the internet. So if you were to look back, kind of the internet then is much more simpler form. You'd be able to search in something. Hopefully you'd be able to get what you want. SEO was very, very different back then. But now we've got sponsored results, which are paid ads. You might have like commonly asked questions for other things that people ask for. You've got a Google My Business page on the right-hand side that's going to tell you a little bit about your business. So it's a very different platform. Part of this is because as Google's been growing as an organization, right? Um, they're also committed to Wall Street, right? They want to make sure that their numbers are looking good, and that they're also keeping up with the trends, and that they're also a relevant platform for us as individuals so that it's as usable as possible. So if we were to look at even just this past year, Google has been trying to keep up with the AI trend. So you all know, or you might recall that earlier this year, Google had rolled out their kind of version, their AI summary version, and it was populating data that put them in a state of liability, things that were happening, even though they went through lots of testing. And Google does testing, but they did a lot of testing on this AI rollout. When they put it out, people were typing in things and we're getting all kinds of crazy results back. Like you can put glue on your pizza, horrible things about, jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And all of these kind of things triggered, like, we're not ready to go live yet. And then they rolled back that AI feature. And now and when they rolled that out initially, we saw the stocks drop. And then when they rolled it back, they did more testing and they rolled it back out. We saw the stock market go up we had the stocks go up for Google. So this is important because it impacts part of their algorithm, and their adjustments are making sure that it speaks to us as users. So just for advisors, if you're thinking about what does SEO work, how does it work for me, a lot of what I'm going to be sharing today is going to be kind of tidbits of how do we make it as easy as possible for your users or your prospective clients. So with all of that, I know SEO can sometimes feel a little bit mysterious. I'm going to get into how do we crack this code. We have a few other Scooby-Doo references in this as well. Okay, so our agenda for today, let's get into the heart of it. So simple agenda. The first thing is, where do I start with SEO? So what are the kind of things that, where do I actually start with it all together, and kind of what's the narrative here? The second one is, okay, now once I understand where to start, what is next and how do I implement this? Where I'm going to get kind of into the tactical weeds here. And then the third thing is really just an opportunity to ask questions. And please ask questions along the way. You can go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll continue to move forward. Okay, so where do I start with SEO? All right, so this is a common situation that I have with a lot of advisors. They'll come to me and they'll say, okay, Lauren, I am doing a lot of stuff with our marketing and I'm thinking a lot of it connects back to SEO. I'm doing social media posts and I'm also okay with Google reviews. I know that the SEC rule has, come out, and we are still promoting those, or we're slicing in the testimonials where we feel comfortable. We've got a regular blog cadence. It might be once a month. We just did a website update. We're doing events, ebooks, we're thinking about doing videos, and we're doing these other things like we're prospecting, we're, helping with operations, managing clients, so on and so forth. So I'm like, all right. So I hear that there's a lot going on, but tell me a little bit more. Like, why are we doing all these sorts of things, and what's the bigger picture, and how does it connect back to where we're trying to go? And they're like, it's a great question. We know it's important to do all these things, but we're not quite hitting the results we want to get to. But let's take a step back, and maybe we need to really kind of define what those results look like. So it can feel really frustrating. And I get this sense of feeling sometimes like it feels like there's a lot of great activity, but we're not necessarily pointing towards like a north. Like, what is our specific KPI that we're going towards, especially if we're going after an SEO objective? So part of it is like where sometimes I hear this sort of hamster in a wheel situation. So we're like, how do we take a few steps back so we can be even stronger? All right. Because we know we can be stronger, and there's a lot of SEO benefits. So, for example, you can get high quality traffic. Higher quality traffic, which is typically defined as individuals that are within your target market, are gonna, if you're pulling them into your website, you're likely gonna be able to organically, so non-paid, you're like gonna be able to build awareness, start building trust. They have an opportunity to get to know you, even if it's a prospect that comes in through referral, right? And even if they type in your domain and your website is speaking specifically to them and they dig deeper, all of these sorts of things help them to stay on the site longer. They feel like they get to know you. They're doing their research before they even have a conversation. They're watching your videos, they're reading your articles, all these sorts of things. So we know there's a lot of benefits to SEO, which is why firms are investing in this. The reason they're also investing in SEO is because it has long-term benefit. It's the sales cycle is long in this space. It takes a long time. It doesn't typically close overnight. The fastest, sales to close are the ones that come in through referral, right? They're warm leads, but even those need to be able to build that trust to show that credibility. So that's part of the why for why we look at this as a tactic to invest our time and energy into. So we know that it works, but sometimes it can feel like a hamster wheel. And we're like, where do we even start with it? So let's actually talk about what works or what's next to make sure that we're kind of mapping up our game plan to our end goals. And again, feel free to drop in questions that you guys might have, and we will make sure to answer those too. Yeah,
Yeah, Lauren, I actually had a question if you don't mind before we jump into this next section.
let's do it.
So, I'm I'm curious, just based on what we just talked about, if I'm a completely new advisor who is coming into this for the first time, where should I start? Where should
Yeah.
I just begin?
Okay, so we're going to get into that a little bit more, but I will give you the quick answer, which is you've got to start with your target market.
Okay.
And then I'll talk about what that means to be able to break it down from there, specifically for SEO. So I know.
Okay.
Okay. You want to pepper me with more questions, or I can break it
Oh,
down in
yeah.
the next part?
No, I actually, why don't you get started and then I'll see if you cover some of my questions. But if not, then I'll
Awesome.
jump back in here in a second and see if they're relevant.
Okay, so let's actually get to that because that's what we're covering next is like where do we actually start and what's next for you if you want to get into this and you're totally new with it. So it is your target market. So you know how I had given that example where I'm sometimes feeling or talking with firms and it feels like they're the hamster in the wheel and they're just going round and round and round. They're doing a lot of activity, but it's not necessarily mapped towards a bigger goal of like who are we trying to go after? What are we trying to do? And why are we creating all these articles? How does it actually line up? So if you're a firm owner or you're a part of the leadership team, you're probably looking at your business strategy thinking, 3, 5, maybe even 10 plus years down the road, right? Like, where do we want to go? What are our growth numbers? We want to hit a specific AUM objective. What is our monthly recurring revenue like? Like, whatever the breakdown might be from a business strategy level, maybe you want to sell, or maybe you want a position to sell, or you want a position to have advisors join your team. All these business strategy questions are really important because they're actually going to impact SEO as well. You take it a step further as you understand your business strategy. We want to be known, let's say, for, I don't know, we want to be known to target, maybe business owners that are specifically focusing on exit planning, something like this. Then we can get down into that marketing strategy to really understand who our target market is so we can map all of our specific tactics against that. So let me give an example. So I've got a kind of rough outline of a target market here. I've got a tech execs, right, with executive compensation benefits. So we'll just call him Jim here. So these are some things on the right that Jim cares about. RSUs, NSOs, tax planning, tech forward, might be in mid 30s, 40s, loves Zoom meetings, everything's virtual, no paper, going to throw away any paper. They don't care if you as an advisor are, if they're in California and you as an advisor are in Wisconsin, it doesn't matter. Like they just want the person that they can trust that understands the complexity of their challenges and someone that they can really lean on for kind of where they are, right? So if we take our target market profile of Jim, what used to happen with Jim, if he was going to go search for an advisor, is Jim would type in something like uh, financial advisor, executive benefits or something of that sort. And what used to happen before the world of AI is Jim would go right to the research section. He'd be served up with all of these articles that Jim would have to surf through to be able to understand like who in this advisory market is actually doing this work. Now what's happened is AI has come to the top. So if Jim were to search something in, AI is going to give a summary. It's going to help him to get smarter. He can start to do the research and then get more specific and actually make an action to do outreach. So let me give you an example. So let's say Jim, he cares about RSUs, types in restricted stock options. He's just trying to figure out like, how do I understand this and break this down for myself? So now with Google and AI, he's going to get rolled up this summary of what RSUs are. So it's going to give him a little bit of like a deeper dive of like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to understand the complexity of my plan. It's probably going to have his head scratching a little bit more about benefits, so on and so forth. So you go, okay, I've got this AI summary, right? And it's going to help me to be able to now type in a more detailed search that's going to help him do deeper research, which is where SEO I think is really interesting as we move forward and especially interesting in the advisor market. Now Jim's going to go, I know a little bit more about RSUs. Let me type in, restricted stock units restrictions specifically to California. So right away, he types this in. Oddly enough, this was just honestly when I was putting this together, there was a firm that came up here. When I happened to click on it, this is all this firm does. They actually target executives that are like literally Jim's profile popped up right away. So he's probably going to click on there and go, okay, like this firm gets me. They have an article specific to my challenge. Let me learn a little bit more. So to answer that question about like where do I start in as advisor, you've got to know your target market because this is going to help you to actually help Jim with his research when he's going to try to find the right advisor, right? So Jim goes, okay, well, this is really interesting. I'm going to get even more specific. You just natural search, right? Like you're going to know like, well, kind of who is the best of the best? Like you want that social proof. So you might type in something like RSUs, California, best wealth management firm. Now all of a sudden I'm served up with a bunch more. And so Jim might start poking around to learn about these other competitors or other firms that could potentially be a good fit to get to a place where he's ready to take action, which is the last step there. So that's kind of the funnel that someone would be coming in, a prospect would be coming in from search. So as an advisor, what you can do that's going to work for you is you know who your target market is. And I'm going to talk about in these following slides what we do to be able to like actually get to this research section to know the kinds of things Jim's going to be typing into search that are actually going to help him find your website. So that's kind of the secret sauce in it. But the key thing here is that you've got to have good input, knowing who your target market is, to have good data output, so we can actually get really specific with the topics we'd be writing on, or we'd be creating video on, or we would be doing webinars on, so they actually add value to that audience. So I'm going to stop there if there's any questions if you want to jump in.
Wow. No, Lauren, I just never thought about it like that. I mean, I Google things every day or I DuckDuckGo things every day. And I just don't think about the journey that goes into my experience as the user. That's fascinating to think about. Just a couple quick questions to elaborate a little more on some points that you brought up. So I know that you mentioned you have to ask strategic questions. What kind of strategic questions would you recommend, or how would you recommend finding them depending on the type that you need to ask?
So just to clarify, so strategic questions that a prospect might be looking for to find an advisor, or I just want to make sure I'm following.
Either or. I know that when we were discussing at the beginning of the section, kind of how to
Yeah.
begin this process, those questions are really important because, like you said, you also need to identify your target audience. And I empathize with anyone who's maybe watching today and going, Lauren said I should know my target audience, and I don't. Um, so these two felt like big pieces. And if you were a little bit newer to
Yeah.
this process or unfamiliar with those terms, I was wondering if maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on how you might handle them for someone who's less
Yeah.
familiar.
Honestly, it's a really big process, and you hit the
Oh,
nail on the head with that. And it shouldn't be taken lightly because it's a fork in the road that is a decision. Once you identify your decision for what target market you're going to go after, you're likely going to spend a lot of resources to really build out your practice for that target. So I think that it really deserves a step back, perhaps an offsite. I know there's like Schwab offers a target market exercise that firms can go through if they're your custodian. Kristen Luke, who runs on Niche, she has a whole target market program. And she has a book actually as well on this specific topic. And I think that it really requires an honest conversation to understand like what audience am I passionate about? Run the numbers with your current CRM, like who do we serve and who do we best serve? And where can you make a profit too? You want to make sure that, it pencils out as well. So it's kind of a cross section between a variety of these things, but answering and understanding where you want to align your efforts is really going to be able to help you design your firm's like back office and operations, as well as all of your messaging and your content and how you go about creating that content so that it really is served up in a way that is beneficial to that target market. So I think it almost deserves like a whole offsite, frankly, to really unpack that. But I think probably also just a gut check of who do you love working with will help to answer that.
I really like what you just said, a gut check of who you like working with.
And there's probably
Yeah.
something natural about who you've already brought into your firm. It might be like a certain value set. You might come from like there's an advisor we've worked with for a number of years that came from the credit union space. That's got its own jargon. And so he would work with a lot of credit union executives. And so as a result, he could just play ball like with the language and having those conversations. I'm sure there's a number of you that are watching too, where you go, yep, I get somebody in that is I don't know, they like I said earlier, that case of like a business owner. And everyone on our team has MBAs, and we understand this world. And so I think those are all kind of good cues because your target market will impact who you hire, like I said, your operations, your marketing, so many facets of the business, your own certifications, where you spend your
Wow.
time a lot.
Well, if anyone is feeling brave, please in the chat, go ahead and put if you know what your target market is or if that was something new to you. Because I'm curious if I'm the only one that thought that. But if you're watching in the future, just think about it. If you don't know what your target market is right away, that might be something to take away and go take for homework after
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, it's a big homework assignment, frankly. And I think that it's a really important one because if you don't do it, you can be in the hamster in the wheel kind of situation I was sharing earlier. So
Totally.
you're
Thank you,
kind of going
Lauren.
round and round. You're like, wait, why am I doing all this stuff? Because it's not necessarily mapping up to really speak to a specific audience. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes total
yeah.
sense. Thank you.
So going back to that idea of like good input of knowing who your target market is going to help with a good output. So let me show you what I mean by that. So we had all these things that Jim cared about, right? Like just a whole variety of things. And that kind of profile, we're going to be able to take essentially that profile and dump it into a bunch of tools, which I'm going to blow up this part here in a minute. So when we dump it in all these tools, it's going to spit back an endless amount of data because, frankly, the world of the internet is very big brother. It's a lot of tracking. You have more information than you ever want to know about. So let me actually pop over here. So just to break this down up here, these are just some SEO tools. There are a number of others, but just pulled a few of the more popular ones. So on this chart here, you've got the tool, the location. So if you want to click through, learn a little bit more, if there's a cost that's associated with it, if you want to try it out, and then a description of what this specific tool is and how it could be utilized. So each one of these tools, when you dump in that target market profile, you insert this key information. It might be around geography or certain things that people care about or what have you. It's going to help us to really zero in on what's important to that demographic, not just from what we think, but actually things that they're searching for, and break it down by their buyer journey. Like, are they just curious and they're trying to learn? Are they actually using the search term to help them buy or to build credibility? Which is pretty fascinating because that allows us to really like tailor that buyer journey and make sure that our funnel end to end is full. So, any questions or I'll keep going.
Oh yeah, keep going, Lauren.
All right. So, um all this data set is going to help us to kind of solve the mystery a little bit more for like what does Jim actually care about, right? Because I don't want to be that hamster in a wheel spinning around just creating content or doing stuff just to do it. I actually want to create stuff that's going to add value to his life because I'm adding value to his life and I'm going to also it benefits me, right? Then Jim's going to go, "Oh, this firm gets me. They're speaking my language, like they've got certifications that are relevant to me, they're offering webinars that are beneficial to me, or they've got groups or things of that sort, right? So it's going to help us to really figure out like what's important to Jim. And what it's also going to do is it's going to give us a checklist, a specific list of action items that we can implement today that are specific to our target market. So what I'm going to do here is share a little bit more of what that checklist could look like. And I'll also kind of put it with this caveat of this checklist and the things I'm about to show you are a lot of things in practice that work for firms, but you can't take it off the shelf. You have to be able to have the strong target market input that's informed by the data. And then the data is going to create essentially a custom checklist of things that you can do for your specific firm. And what I'm about to do is be able to break down some of those common checklist items. My hope is that that's going to give you a kind of lexicon of different terms and then also things to help you become more familiar with things that typically SEO providers will recommend to help you show up in search and help Jim find you. To use that analogy. Our target market find you, whoever that I'm using Jim as our common target market for today. So, okay. So it's going to typically break it down into two sections. You're usually going to have on-site SEO, which is stuff on your website, right? It's stuff that you own, and you're going to have off-site SEO. So off-site SEO are things like backlinks. For example, if you're on a board, you might have your bio on the board's website, and that bio is going to have a link that's going to go back to your website. You might show up, in a review somewhere, and that review is going to take you back to your website, a NAPFA page, fee only page, so on and so forth. You start to basically build all these links on the internet off your website that point people back to your website. So it's typically going to break it down into these two sections. So much like that other chart, we've got three columns here. So the first, and I'm actually going to go through each one of these deliverables. So the first are different deliverables, and these deliverables are usually the kinds of tactics that you would proceed forward with to enhance your own SEO to help your target market to find you. Again, I'm going to break these down in a minute. Your location, if they're on site on your website, or if they're off site on someone else's website and they're directing back to your website. And then this is just a definition of what these different deliverables are. So again, I'm going to go into each one of these. Okay. So the first one, that whole data, like, target market in, data out, a lot of it's going to be able to break down into keyword research. So, that whole chart that I had showed earlier where you've got first AI and then you've got the research phase. These are whatever terms are going to spit back here specifically for your target market. It's going to give you the specific things that your target market's going to be searching for. And you may have it in your head like, oh, definitely Jim is going to search for RSUs, but he actually might not be, right? And so it's going to help us to like actually say like, what is my target market searching for? How difficult is it for me to actually search for that? Like, what's the intent here? Are they just researching? Are they ready to buy? It's going to really help us to identify topics. And these topics are clues for things that you can write articles about, you could create videos about. There are ways you could update your website. It could be a seminar series topic, a webinar topic, things that are really going to add value to your target market. So that keyword research is really helpful to make sure that we're not just creating to create, we're actually creating against specific things that our target cares about. Feel free to jump in with questions too. So
Absolutely, Lauren. Um, so I'm just curious, as far as like using the target in their keywords, correct? Just to reiterate that the KW in the bottom right corner stands for
Yes.
keywords. So once again, just as a new person's perspective, as far as identifying these keywords, once you would of course need to identify your target market first. So if you haven't already done that piece of homework, you should not jump the gun and try to identify your target keywords, right?
Yeah. So what happens is sometimes you could jump the gun and you could go, I want to rank for more common keywords like, like wealth management in your geographic location, like wealth management San Diego or fee only or fiduciary or like kind of common keywords, which those are important, but a lot of other firms are also trying to go after those keywords. So if you want to get competitive, and you actually want to have your target market find you, you've got to have that paired with your target market. So if you sort of like jump the gun and you don't do this research, you're going to end up with that example where you're literally just spinning around and you're just creating to create. So, did that answer your question?
It did, no, and I just think it's an important point to emphasize that you want to go in order with this. You don't want to skip because something maybe sounds easier or more exciting. Yeah, this sounds like a process that you really need to follow to a T, kind of how you're describing. And you don't, I wanted to emphasize, yeah, that you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of it's a little bit of art and science, I think, like anything else, right? So step one is really knowing your target market, which is usually informed by, your business strategy, where you want to go. But it's knowing your target market. And then the next step is you probably have a good gut because you know this target market, like your boots on ground, like you're the ones doing the sales calls, you're having the conversations, you're hearing the questions. Don't ignore any of that. That's still really important. We've also got to pair that with data. And so this is the data that's going to help us to really zero in where we should spend our time. And so then you take all that data and then you're going to be able to scrape through it and and like cherry pick the pieces that make sense for your firm, and where you can add the most value. So,
Thank you. No, Lauren, I really appreciate your insight on that.
okay, we're going to go to the next one here.
Cool.
Okay, this is just a real basic thing. Make sure your SEO tools are installed, Google Analytics. There's so many. There's a number of tools, but just at a minimum, like Google Analytics, installing that. Sometimes what we see is that it's installed and then it's unlinked. So like you're like, oh, let's go check the data for the last, I don't know, like month or 6 months, and you're like, oh, 3 months ago, it's something unlinked. So just making sure you have your tools installed to be able to gather that data, specifically for your firm. So that's helpful. It's not like a necessary thing to be able to get this keyword research that I mentioned on the last slide, but as you move forward, it's going to help to give you intelligence for where you should sort of adjust course as you're moving forward.
Now, is Google Analytics your favorite, Lauren, or do you have others that you would recommend?
I think Google Analytics is kind of like a must have, like just like as a you got to have that installed. But there are a ton of other tools that, if you're working with an SEO provider, that you're likely, there's sometimes third-party tools, on that initial slide, I said some of them are free, some of them are trials, blah, blah, blah. That they're going to probably utilize to be able to pull back data and to be able to get a deeper search for things. So, but Google Analytics is free. A lot of Google tools are free. So I would say don't be afraid to use those. I'm going to get into some more tools here in a minute too. Okay. The next thing is just a basic audit on your website. So these are simple things you could literally do today that are going to help improve your website. There's a link here. You guys can all get access to this deck afterwards. But test your website speed. Is it fast? Are there things that are slowing it down? This is a really simple fix because we all know when you go to a website, if it takes a long time to load, it's really frustrating and people are probably going to leave. So if you have images that are huge sizes and you've loaded them to the site without compressing them, it's going to reduce your speed. If you've loaded a video, that's like a huge no-no because it's going to totally pull down the speed of your site. So you always want to have those videos that show up on your site through embed codes, through a YouTube, or similar video platform. So website speed is really important because that's going to, again, it's going to help the user experience, which also impacts SEO. Broken links. things get outdated, links break, you can drop your website through a link checker. It will give you a whole list of all of the broken links on your website. That's an easy thing to be able to update, and that's important because it makes, again, the user experience better. So it's just a more fluid experience. You're not clicking on a bunch of dead links. Duplicate copy. Sometimes we duplicate pages. You might have content that you are pulled from a third-party site, or maybe you're paying for a third-party content, distribution company, and you may put it on your site, but it's also on, 20, 50, 100 other advisors' websites. Google looks at that content and they just sort of say it's like, just sort of like net neutral. It doesn't add value to SEO. So it's important. That's why that, authentic content that's really coming from your firm's voice, that's adding the value is really important. Like, think about the Kitsa site, right? Like, every article that you read on Kitsa, it's fully fleshed out. There's a lot of detail. It really is adding value to the user at large. So you want to think about your content to make sure you're not just duplicating content, because that does make an impact on SEO. An easy one to fix is flat website architecture. So just to explain what that means in this graphic here, it'd be really frustrating, right? If you went to a home page and then you're like, okay, I'm going to click to the next page, and I'm going to click to the next page. I'd be lucky if I could even get to these pages, let alone these pages. So that's really frustrating if you've got to dig to try to find what you're looking for. A flat website architecture, though, is you maybe go to the home page and there's just a few items in the top navigation that have sub items organized underneath it. So another way of saying this is kind of less is more. I know less is not easy, right? Simple is never easy, but less is more when it comes to just your top navigation of the website. And then this is talking about structured data. So this gets a little technical, but if you are writing, for example, a blog post, and you can, when you upload images, you can put descriptions on the images, or you can put key information that allows Google to scrape the page if it's in a meta tag description, or it gets rather technical, but it basically allows Google to scrape the page to say, oh, they're talking about X, Y, and Z. And so this is a little bit more on the technical side, but there's a bunch of things that you can do to make it easier for Google to read a website and to be able to scan it, which is going to add more value to your SEO goals in the end. So I'm going to keep us moving unless there's questions. Okay.
We're good, Lauren. Keep
All
going.
right. Content plan. I alluded to this earlier about your keywords. This is going to help you to be able to go, okay, we're going to write about this topic. We're going to do a seminar about this. We're going to do yada, yada, yada. All those keywords are clues that are going to be able to help you actually build valuable resources. You remember that example where it's giving the target market, and he was like, okay, I'm going to search for RSUs. Then went into like RSUs California restricted, and that firm showed up. Like, they showed up specifically for something that Jim was looking for. It's probably because they did keyword research, they identified a topic that he actually cared about, and then wrote about it, and that helped Jim to be able to find that firm. So your keyword research is going to inform your content calendar, which are the things that you're writing about and adding value to the world and to that specific target.
Wow. So just curious, Lauren. Obviously it definitely sounds like everything you've said today has to work together. Like, it's all like a train and it pushes everything forward, or I guess the train's pulled forward, but
Yeah.
you understand.
I'm
So
totally gone. Yeah.
is there, I don't know, are there specific topics or like formatting for content that you see most successful for advisors?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Honestly, it just comes down to making it as easy as possible for you,
Got it.
the reader. If you have a retired audience or pre-retiree, you're probably going to want to make the font size a little bit bigger. Like, I know that might sound
That's a good
silly,
tip.
but it's a small adjustment, right? You're thinking about your audience. Again, going back to Kitsis, like, think about it, like on the podcast, there's always that sidebar. You can jump to certain sections, you can watch it on a, you can watch it, you can listen to the audio, you can read the audio transcript. It's really easy. Like, the easier it is, you can interlink between articles, you can find things you're looking for. kind of thinking back to that initial slide with the flashback to the flip phone, right? And the Netflix CDs, if you remember that slide we had talked about kind of in the beginning of the presentation, that was a different world then. And as we move forward, it's become easier and easier and easier, which is one of the reasons that AI is impacting search now, is because it makes it easier for us. It's the exact same thing for an advisor that's creating a website. And this is why websites are so important today, is because they are a place that people are going to, the prospects are going to learn more about you. So the easier you make it for them, from just the layout of the site, the way that the content is written, using headlines, bullet points, things like that, all of these make a difference.
Absolutely. Now, this is a little off topic, but I would love to pick your brain on this. As far as AI goes, do you think it's making things easier or harder?
I think it's making it easier for us as humans and as users. It's making it harder for people that are in the search world. I think for advisors, it's going to make it easier only if we really lean into our target market and add value there. So that research component where someone's going to really research about what we're going for, if we do general topics, it's going to be whitewashed. We've got to really be able
Yeah.
to zero in on what people really want. So I think it is making it easier overall, but we've got to do it in a way we're really making sure that we're pulling in our right target.
Are you seeing a lot of advisors struggle with the AI piece, or are they getting it pretty quickly?
I think it's so new to all of us. I
Yeah.
think that even like SEO technicians and people that are in the weeds every day are unsure how to use it. I also think that like compliance around AI just in general is like a big it's got a big question mark around how we utilize it. Here for our team, we've put together specific like AI guidelines to help all of our copywriters for what we do and don't do when it comes to AI. So it's a beast that I think as a world we're just trying to understand, and how we can make it work best for us, and also stay compliant with the unexpected pieces that come with it. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. I didn't mean to take so much of your time
no, no,
for
no,
that.
keep it coming. So okay, I've got just a few left here. You can build internal and external links. I gave an example to this earlier about like if you're on a board, you've got your bio on a board website, and so it would be great if that links back over to your website. All of that NAPFA, fee only, so on and so forth is going to push back to your website. That all helps to tell Google you've got something important to say. Link building and citations. So this is further backlinking, but this is an opportunity too if you were to do like PR, for example. I know Wealth Tender also, they've got a lot of PR opportunities within their platform. And they also have, technology. So, have them up here as an example. But there's a lot of opportunities out there to just build credibility in the marketplace. And I think that's an important thing always. I mean, that was important still, like, 20 years ago to be able to build that credibility. It's still important now. So, and specifically what I mean by that is like, writing articles for relevant publications, and, and maybe being on conference circuits and things like that. Okay, this is UX design, user experience design is what I was talking to earlier. You asked the question about, how do we make the landing page actually stronger for someone, which they want to come to their blog and go, okay, like, like it's really frustrating, right? If you go to a blog and you're like, oh my gosh, like this font is really small, or the color feels really off, or you just things are sized in weird ways, or like the image takes over, 3/4 of the page or something like that. You want to think about it for someone who's actually going to digest that content and make it as easy as possible for them. So white space, might have video, or like a podcast that someone can go to, an audio transcript. There's all kinds of things that you can do to make sure that that experience is as seamless as possible. And that's important because it's going to keep people on your site longer, build trust, so on and so forth. Keep them coming back for
Oh,
more.
sorry, Lauren. I have to interject here. I'm super passionate about this because I spent the last year like researching optimization of website design. I had no idea that it
Awesome.
was so intricate. Oh my gosh, the thought that goes into designing the user experience on your personal website. So I'm curious, I know this is a completely different topic and we could do a whole other webinar on it, but are
Yeah.
there some like tips that you can give for someone who's maybe never even thought about this before, things that they could go back and look at just to optimize or be conscious of?
Um, gosh, it could, um, it really varies so much across the board. I think font size is a really easy one. Like I mentioned earlier, like even increasing font size to like, 12, 14 font, depending on your font style or kind of where you're at, other things to optimize from a design standpoint is just more white space. It's just easier on the eyes. Um,
Oh,
if there's Gosh, I mean, there's so many things that I could speak to. It's kind of hard to think about like button colors or they call them even like hover state. If you were to hover over, like a button or a link, like what color that would be. All these things kind of make it easier for someone's journey when they are, trying to learn more. Another easy thing to do is honestly just pull up a few sites that you love. It could even be like an Amazon or a Nordstrom's or something like that. And you're probably going to get cues from these big organizations and the things that they do to make it as easy as possible where you don't even think about it. And there might be like a blogger that you just love and you're like, oh my gosh, you could be on the site forever. And it's probably because they've got a bunch of links that link to other, content on their website. It's really easy to find and it's adding value and you like reading it and the way that you're reading it. So I'd say also just take cues from others. They don't have to be in this industry that I think could inspire some of the things that you're doing too to make it an easier experience for someone's journey.
Lauren, thank you. I feel like you broke that down really simply, and anyone on the webinar or watching, if you have any questions about this particular, I know this is a little away from search engine optimization, but this is
Let's
such an
relate it.
important part of the user experience. And Lauren's completely
Totally.
correct. The little things that you even said, like button colors, the hover capacity, um, white space. I feel like those are all things you could go into your website even today and assess if you have enough of. So,
Yep.
but my
Difference for
favorite thing you said
padding.
was comparing to some of your favorite websites because there's a reason they're your favorite.
Yeah.
That's
You're
such a
like,
good
oh my
point.
gosh. I keep going back. Etsy, it doesn't, they're constantly optimizing those sites to make them stronger for people because they want to be the best experience possible. So,
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for elaborating on that a little bit more. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot, and I know it's a lot. I think that just to keep it simple, the place to start is really understanding who your target market is, because that's going to help us to solve the mystery. Like, where are we going? What are we going to do? How are we going to escape the bad guys or this problem of feeling like we're just going in a circle? Kind of that hamster in a wheel again, analogy. So, I did want to provide for you all just some kind of general benchmarks because sometimes I get the question of like, okay, where do I sit? Like what's actually just a good benchmark in this industry and kind of what does that look like? So we've got some financial services benchmarks specifically for websites. So like what should I expect from like a session duration, which is AKA how long does someone stay on my website? 2 minutes and 45 is what the benchmark is here. This is from a 2022 study. I've seen it though as low as 2 minutes. And even 2 minutes and over is kind of high in this, and I'll call it in website world in general. Usually you have 30 seconds or less when someone comes to your website to actually get them to stick and learn more about who you are and what you can do. So I've also broken it down here for you guys for just like SEO success. These are some of the kind of measurements that we look for to know if SEO is working. So, for example, um, if you've identified those keywords, you're likely going to target to be in the top 10. You might be on like page 100 and you just want to get to top 10. Maybe you're on page 2 and you want to get to page 1, but you want to be in the top 3, something like that. Now, the keywords, they're volatile, they flex. So once you get stuck in position number 1, you could be bumped down to position number 5, depending on what people are searching for. But you could have an objective there to primarily be on the top 10 is just kind of a rough benchmark. So increasing organic search, meaning that you're getting more people to find you naturally, not just typing in your website, going to you through paid ads or from social channels. So it's about 41% of total traffic. So in back end of Google Analytics, you'll see a pie chart that's broken down. It's going to show you the percentages of where your traffic's coming from. So that's where that figure is being pulled from. Your click-through rate. So that means that you're going to have people that are clicking through to actually come to your website, and then they're also clicking through once they get to your website, or they're clicking into multiple pages. So you've got that number, and then the conversion rates. Conversion can be defined in so many different ways. Specifically in this world, you usually identify key pieces that would be considered a conversion on the buyer's journey once they land on your website, and an example of that could be like filling out a form. That's a conversion. Someone's entered their information, they filled out a form. But along the way, if you get really technical, um, and if you're in the weeds with SEO, you might be able to follow a user's journey, and they might go, okay, we know that if people go from our homepage and then they land on one of our articles, and then they land on our contact us page and they fill it out, each one of those touch points could be defined as a conversion. So you can get sharper about making each one of those conversions higher. So, okay, I'm going to keep us moving. I think it's one of our last slides here. So what we did is we pulled some of our data just from our clients, and this is pretty consistent for what we see just across the board, not only with general data that's out there, but also with ours. So these are the top 3 pages that we see people going to. Number one, the homepage. And this is important because this is where you're going to want to spend your time and resources. Homepage, people want to learn, like they're going to maybe go to your contact us page, your client login from here, somewhere else, but homepage, team page. Team page is so important because it's about you. You are part of the difference, and then contact us. So those are key pages to make sure you're putting some love into. So all this information, hopefully it's going to help to solve your specific mystery that you're looking for around SEO, so that you are not feeling like that hamster in a wheel. Or you might already be kind of along that journey, but there might be a few other things that you can add in to make that journey that much sharper. So with that, I think we've got a few minutes left. If there's any open questions, I'm happy to answer those specific to folks that are on the call.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I learned a lot. Like you said, AI and mastering kind of this new world that is, the new type of searching, because you really laid it out so nicely. You're right. I feel like we used to just put something in a search engine and kind of get what we needed, but now there are lots of other ways to optimize that search, and people have definitely taken advantage of it. So it's a new frontier for sure.
Totally
Um,
is.
with that though, I do have a couple of questions. So I'm not sure if you touched on this. I think you did, but it was just early. So if you wouldn't mind kind of coming back to it, how is social searching changing SEO?
Mm, yeah, that's a good question. So, what's happening with AI is that it's pulling from multiple sources and it's coming up with those descriptions. Also, social search is becoming, so it's impacting the AI kind of like overview, right?
Hmm.
But it's also important because um, people used to just search via Google, and that's where they would go to find their answers. But the second biggest search domain is YouTube, which happens to also be owned by Google. And people are looking to these different platforms to be able to find answers. They're looking in Chat GPT, right?
Yeah.
So that data's got to pull from somewhere. So what it's doing is it's just opening up the world of where people are searching for. So it's not just about the Google game, why that's still important. You just want to have that target market show up throughout your content, which is likely going to be in different mediums. It could be a blog post, it could be a video, it could be on Instagram, reel, it could be on LinkedIn. And it's the aggregate of the consistency around that specific target market that helps kind of the internet gods, if you will, point people back to you. So it's changing because it's not just about Google anymore. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So
And just to clarify a little further and give everybody a clear definition, how would you define social search?
oh gosh, I mean, just someone that is kind of well, I think of social search, I specifically think of like a social media platform, where someone would be going to those platforms to actually look for, maybe a service or a recipe or advice or something like that, to be able to try to find an answer or learn a little bit more. It might be like a vacation or something like that. So it's not just you're using these social platforms or tools as a means to search and find an answer, not just Google.
I love how I want to bring up what you said earlier too. You did say, we're in the age of TikTok and videos, and you're completely correct. I know a lot of people who get a lot of their information from Instagram and
Yes.
TikTok and X. Let's call it
News.
Twitter.
Yes, all of it.
So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to highlight too. Thank you for revisiting that. I know we had some friends join us late. Um, as far as I think the big question that's kind of on everyone's mind now after listening to your wisdom, which was delightful, how long does it take to work once you do it?
Great question. So there are some small changes like the site speed component I mentioned earlier. Sometimes it's the architecture of the site, things like that, that you can start to see a pickup of results in a matter of a few weeks. There's other things though, like really building your authority, meaning Google says, oh, you are the one to go to for X topic. I mean, you're usually looking at least like a 6-month runway, and you've got to put out that regular, information. So what doesn't work is you go, okay, January 1, we're going to push out, 20 articles about executive compensation benefits to, our target market. And Google is like, it takes a time. Like it's got to filter through the internet. They have to see who's an authority, all these sorts of things, let alone like you probably couldn't generate 20 something articles that fast that actually sound like your company and are kind of unique and add real value, um, in order for them to really be seen, I think not just in Google's eyes, but I think in probably the user's eyes as something that would be beneficial. And frankly, the long-term kind of burn works better because it allows you to have drip content that then you can push to your target through a newsletter, through other mediums. So, and push to your COIs and what have you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. You make this sound so easy. I appreciate
Yeah.
you and your expertise here today. If you could offer a word of advice to anyone who's diving into this or maybe newer to it, or maybe even they're an intermediate level and they're kind of feeling like they're plateauing when it comes to marketing, what advice would you offer them?
Just say take a step back and look at the big picture. Like where do you want to go with the business and how do you define success with that? And then, again, going back to your target market, once you've got some of those clear inputs, it's gonna again kind of, if you have it's garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you've got that strong input. If you're already kind of on the train and you're doing it and you go, yeah, we've done all of those things, we've got all the keyword research and what have you, then I hope that it's just more of a general awareness about hey, how AI is now changing the name of the game. And then also to not be afraid to also pop open the hood of your own Google Analytics to learn a little bit more about your own user's journey now that you've got that data. And then that gives you an opportunity to lean in to give to learn more of what your audience likes and to be able to give them more of that's going to be able to add value.
Thank you, Lauren. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, I know we're out of time. So I want to thank everyone again for coming and joining us today. If you're watching in the future, thank you so much. Lauren, thank you for joining us and giving us that amazing expertise on a topic that, like we said at the beginning, is just going to become more important as time goes on because, like you said, the world is changing and this is now the world we live in. So thank you, Lauren. If you have any closing thoughts for us, we'd be happy to accept them.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more. I know it's a really complex topic. Uh, anyways, I just hope that if anyone has questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope you're able to walk away with at least some tidbits about SEO and what works well for advisors.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Lauren. We had a great time today, and I hope to see you all on another Simplicity Spotlight soon. Have a
Great.
great
Thank
day,
you.
everybody. Bye.